Feed eats up almost 80 cents of every dollar a livestock farmer spends. 80 cents. My granddaddy Cal would have called that a disaster, because his farm fed itself, mostly. He ran cattle, goats, and 40 chickens, and I never once saw him come home from the feed store with more than 2 bags. The rest? His farm made it. He taught me how when I was 12 years old, and today I'm going to show you the 3 methods he used that can cut that number in half. No miracle products, no expensive supplements, just what's already on your farm right now being thrown away. I'm Earl, 67 years old, 3rd generation Iowa farmer. Method number 2, fermented feed. This one surprised me most. A 5-gallon bucket of grain in water, left for 3 days, becomes 30% more nutritious than the same grain straight from the bag. Same grain, same cost. 30% more, your animal actually absorbs. The universities confirmed this recently. My granddaddy just called it the soak. Feed prices went up again this year. Your granddaddy had the answer. Let's go find it. Before we do, if this is hitting close to home, do me a favor right now. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It costs you nothing, and it sends this to somebody else who's been wincing at their feed bill every Tuesday. One tap right now and come straight back. I'll be right here. Now let me take you to October of 1974. I was 12 years old. My granddaddy Cal called me into the barn on a cool morning, and in the far corner behind the old tack hanging on the wall was a wooden bucket. It had a cloth draped over the top, and from 3 feet away, it smelled like something had crawled inside and made poor decisions. I said, "Granddaddy, what died in there?" He laughed for a solid 2 minutes. Then he wiped his eyes, picked up the cloth, and showed me inside. It was grain, soaked in water, slightly bubbling, with a sharp, sour smell I didn't have a word for at 12 years old. He said, "Earl, you know what that smell is? That smell is money. What's in this bucket right now is the most nutritious feed I can put in front of any animal on this farm, and it cost me almost nothing extra on top of the grain I was already buying." Then he showed me exactly how it worked. That bucket fed half his chickens for 30 years. He called it the soak. The agricultural universities finally caught up in the last couple decades and started calling it fermented feed. Same thing, same smell, same results. Now here's why your farm probably already has 3 sources of free feed sitting around that you're throwing out every day, and none of them require a bucket. Method 1. Kitchen scraps, done strategically. Most folks either feed every scrap they generate to the animals without thinking about it, or they don't feed scraps at all because they heard it was complicated. Neither approach is right. The truth is in the middle, and the middle is where your granddaddy lived. Here's what works by animal. For your chickens, raw vegetable scraps, fruit peels, bread that's going stale, cooked grains, melon rinds, corn cobs, bean ends, pumpkin and squash, all of it. Your hens will work through a pile of kitchen scraps like it's the best day of their lives. Crushed eggshells go right back to them as calcium supplement. A clean, continuous loop. For your pigs, if you've got them, pigs are the most generous receivers on the farm. Up to 50% of their daily ration can come from kitchen scraps. They handle a wider range than any other animal. Just make sure to check your state regulations before feeding kitchen scraps to pigs. Now, some states have rules about this, particularly around feeding meat products. A quick call to your county extension office tells you exactly where you stand. For your goats and cattle, kitchen scraps are more of a supplement than a staple. 10 to 15% for goats, and a little less for cattle. Their nutrition base needs to be forage, grass, hay, fermented grain. But the scraps add variety, nutrients, and cost nothing. What to avoid with every species? Anything moldy, meat, or dairy for chickens. Avocado for chickens? That's toxic, not a treat. And potato that's gone green or sprouted. The green color in potato means solanine buildup, which can cause real harm. Pull those out before you take the rest of the bucket to the barn. One more source nobody talks about. Spent brewer's grain. The material left over after a craft brewery makes a batch of beer. They extract the sugar. What remains is grain, rich in protein, 25 to 30%, and fiber. Most small breweries generate hundreds of pounds of this stuff every week and have to pay to dispose of it. Call the 3 craft breweries closest to your farm and ask if they have spent grain available. 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you to come with a truck. I'll come back to that story in a few minutes. But first, let me show you what's in that bucket. Before I do, the kitchen scrap system, the fermentation protocol, the fodder calendar, and everything my granddaddy wrote in his notebooks about making a farm feed itself across all 4 seasons, all of that is part of what Margaret and I put together in the bundle. 10 ebooks, everything 3 generations of this family figured out about feed, pasture, animal health, storm prep, and turning a small piece of land into real income. My neighbor Frank uses the income section and clears $5,000 a month off 5 acres. Most families who work through the whole thing save around $10,000 a year in feed, vet bills, and repairs. Exactly this kind of feed cost we're talking about today. The link is right below this video, right under the subscribe button. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. Right now, the soak. Method 2, fermented feed. The principle is this. The good bacteria that naturally live on grain, when given moisture and a little time, start breaking down the anti-nutritional factors that normally prevent your animals from fully absorbing protein and minerals. After 3 days, the same grain your animal was eating before now delivers 30% more nutrition. Same pounds purchased. 30% more result. That's the equivalent of getting almost 4 months of feed out of every 3 months you buy. Here's the exact method my granddaddy taught me. Get a 5-gallon bucket with a lid, fill it 70% with your regular grain, whatever you're already buying. Pour in enough water to cover the grain by 2 inches. Use water from your well or filtered water if you can. Tap water with chlorine in it will kill the beneficial bacteria you're trying to grow. If tap water is all you have, let it sit uncovered overnight and the chlorine will off-gas. Stir it well. If you have molasses available, regular livestock molasses, the kind you can get at any feed store, add about 5% of the grain volume. It's not required, but it feeds the bacteria and gets fermentation started faster. 2% of salt also helps. Then put the lid on, not hermetically sealed, just resting on top so gas can escape, and leave it in a warm spot in your barn. 3 days in summer, 5 days in winter. When you lift the lid and smell something sharp and sour, not rotten, not putrid, but clean and sour like yogurt or sourdough bread, that's right, that's money in a bucket. Serve it the same day you open it. Don't let it sit open for more than a few hours once you've broken the seal. For chickens and pigs, this can replace up to 100% of their daily grain. For goats and cattle, mix 50% fermented with 50% dry. Ruminants need the texture variation and the fiber that comes with dry feed to keep their digestive systems happy. If it smells genuinely rotten, not sour but putrid, or you see colored mold or the liquid has gone dark and foul, toss it and start over. That one's not right. It happens occasionally. Don't feed it. Start fresh. Transition your animals slowly. 7 to 10 days of mixing fermented with their regular ration before you go full fermented. Sudden changes in feed cause digestive upset. Slow transition, no problems. Now let me tell you about the winter of 1997. Iowa had a storm in January that shut down roads for 2 weeks straight. 14 days. The feed store was inaccessible. I had 18 chickens, 4 goats, and a feed supply that was running low fast. I did the math, and it wasn't good. So I went looking around the barn and the house for anything that could help bridge the gap. And I remembered something I'd read about sprouting grain. I had 50 pounds of wheat seed in the back of the barn. I had plastic nursery trays with drainage holes from the garden. I had water. Margaret walked into our bathroom 3 days later and found 12 plastic trays lined up across the floor, each one sprouting bright green grass about 2 inches tall. She stood in the doorway for a long moment looking at me. She said, "Earl, what did you plant in my bathroom?" I said, "The chicken's dinner." She looked at the trays, looked at me, said, "Does it work?" I said, "It's going to be more nutritious than what I buy at the store." She was quiet for about 10 seconds. Then she said, "Plant more." That's method 3. Fodder. Sprouted grain you grow yourself indoors in 7 days. 1 pound of wheat or barley seed, which costs you about 30 cents at the feed store, sprouts into 6 to 8 pounds of fresh green fodder in a week. Proteins increase 20% during germination. Vitamins go up hundreds of percent. What was a dry seed becomes a living food with a nutritional profile your animal's bodies recognize and absorb efficiently. Here's the exact process. Day 1. Put 1 pound of seed in a jar or bucket, cover with water. Let it soak 12 hours. Drain completely. Day 2. Spread the soaked seed on a tray. A shallow flat tray with small holes in the bottom for drainage works best, in a layer about half an inch deep. Rinse and drain morning and evening. Days 3 through 6. Keep rinsing twice a day. You'll see the seeds sprout within 48 hours. By day 4, there's visible green. By day 6, you've got a dense mat of roots and green shoots 3 to 4 inches tall. Day 7, the mat is ready? Serve it whole. Roots and all. Your animals eat everything. The root mat holds the nutrients from the original seed. Nothing wasted. With 10 trays going in rotation, start 1 new tray every day, you produce 60 to 80 pounds of fresh fodder every week, continuously, for 30 cents of seed per tray. For chickens, replace up to 20% of daily ration with fodder. For goats, up to 30%. For cattle, it works beautifully as a daily supplement through the winter months when grass is gone. For pigs, 30 to 40%. In 1997, those bathroom trays kept my animals through 2 weeks of Iowa winter without a trip to the feed store. Margaret told me later she'd never been prouder of me than that moment she decided to stop being annoyed about the bathroom and look at what I'd actually grown. Now, let me put the whole system together with what my granddaddy understood that most modern farmers don't think about: the seasonal calendar. A farm doesn't need the same amount of purchased feed every month. It needs you to pay attention to what the farm is already producing for free in each season and use it. In spring, when the grass is coming up fast and green, reduce purchased grain and maximize pasture time. Good spring grass can cut your feed bill 40 to 60% on its own. Let the animals do what animals do, graze. In summer, your kitchen garden is producing more than you can eat. Every zucchini that grows past useful size, every tomato that starts cracking, every melon you can't get to, that goes to the animals, not the compost pile. Summer scraps plus fodder trays can carry you with minimal purchased feed for months. In fall, the cornfields around you are being harvested. Ristolo, corn stubble, dropped grain, broken ears on the ground. Cattle grazing corn stubble after harvest can go 30 to 45 days with minimal purchased feed. We covered this in the hay cost video a few weeks back. The same principle. The farm around you is producing free feed if you know where to look. In winter, when forage is gone and scraps are lighter, that's when the fermented bucket and the fodder trays carry you. Those two methods are designed for exactly this season. Predictable, controllable, continuous. My granddaddy Cal understood this intuitively because he'd watched his father do it and his grandfather before that. The farm was designed to feed itself in each season if you paid attention to the seasons. Now let me tell you about the phone call that saved me $1,000 a year for 13 years straight. In 2008, my friend Dale, who works at a small craft brewery about 12 miles from here, called me on a Tuesday afternoon. He said, "Earl, we're throwing away about 200 pounds of spent grain every week, barley mostly. You want any of it?" I drove over the next morning with my trailer. Dale watched me load it up with a look I recognized, the look of somebody who doesn't quite believe what they're seeing. When I finished, he said, "You're hauling away our garbage and you're thanking me?" I said, "Dale, this is 25% protein. My chickens are going to think they died and went to heaven." He laughed. We shook hands. I came back the following week, and the week after that. For 13 years, every time that brewery ran a batch, I got a call. Never paid $1. My chickens got fat, my milk cows produced better, and Dale got to skip the disposal fee. Call your local craft breweries this week. Ask for spent grain or brewer's waste. Tell them you're a livestock farmer. In most cases, they'll sound relieved. They have to pay to get rid of it otherwise. You're solving their problem and yours simultaneously. Use it fresh, within 3 to 5 days of picking it up, or mix it into your fermented feed bucket to extend the shelf life. Either way, use it fast. Now here's the thing my granddaddy Cal told me in that barn in 1974 when he showed me the sour bucket for the first time. He said, "Earl, a farm that buys all its feed is a farm that works for the feed store, not for itself. Your job is to make this land do as much of the feeding as it can and only buy what it can't produce. You do that, you'll be farming for yourself. You don't do that, and you'll be farming for somebody else's profit." I thought about those words every single time I loaded feed bags into the truck for the next 50 years. The 3-day fermented bucket, the sprouted fodder trays, the kitchen scraps your farm is already producing and throwing away, the brewery call you haven't made yet. None of these cost you money. All of them give back what your granddaddy's farm used to make on its own. The link for the full bundle is right below this video. Inside it is the exact protocol my granddaddy called the soak. Every species, every proportion, every season, written down so it doesn't die with me the way it almost died with him. If you've got chickens, goats, cattle, or pigs, there's a feed reduction plan in there built around what your specific land can produce. It's in the description, right under the subscribe button. Stop buying what your farm can already make, friend. That's the whole lesson. And before you close this video, if your hens have been laying less than usual this summer and you've been wondering why, the video I put out last week is the one you need to watch right after this. Your hens were probably laying fine in May. By July, the number dropped and you couldn't figure out what changed. Most folks think it's disease. It isn't. It's a feeding mistake that almost every backyard chicken keeper makes in the summer heat, something your grandmother stopped doing every June 1st. I show you 4 $0 fixes that bring the eggs back in 3 to 5 days. One of them is about apple cider vinegar in the summer water that's actually working against you right now. That video is linked right here. Watch it next. Subscribe. Thumbs up. Go start that bucket tonight. Your granddaddy figured this out so you wouldn't have to.